For many writers, writing has a strong performative aspect. The words should flow, the prose should be beautiful, like encasing the narrative in gold. Writing becomes a presentation in the same way that a violin play does, or a painting. A writer I've interviewed once showed me a story that even had a song suggestion for each chapter, which improves the presentation of her story. And if you just go to Catherine Valente's YouTube channel, you can find her reading her own stories out loud, so the whole performance is enhanced by her voice and body language. Hello, I'm Chris, and today we'll talk about the two different ways the writer's psyche approaches performance in fiction writing. This video will focus mostly on introducing two cognitive functions which are incredibly important to understand if you want to know the psychology behind crafting a performance and enjoying it. This will be an important first step to understanding the performance in fiction writing. So let's get into it. Looking back at our last video, it is the Impactor writers who have this strong focus on prose. These writers are born with a type of brain that makes them always consider the physical presentation they deliver to their audiences. You may also call them the natural performers. These writers go deep into the technical aspects of a performance. They often practice performance. They deconstruct it, analyze it with the mindset of a performer. Let's look at what some writers say who really focus on prose. Here is Colm Tóibín talking about prose.
And so you're varying the sentence rhythms. In the same way you find Cézanne does this, where he varies the brush stroke, that he varies the tonal weight of each brush stroke. And you're doing that as you're working. You're always reading back over the previous two sentences to see what is needed now rhythmically.
And why not throw in a quote by Charles Bukowski, one of those people who prioritize the written line above everything else. When you write, each line must be full of a delicious little juice, flavor. They must be full of power. They must make you want to turn the page. Each line must be an entity unto itself. These natural performers really pay attention to how audiences react to a performance in order to figure out what is actually a good performance. The audience's reaction is the measure of their performance standards. Which is why it is so funny to me when I see these writers focus so much on their performance and then never share it with an audience, because they're afraid of being embarrassed by having a bad prose. When I ask such writers if I can read their texts, they often flat out refuse, telling me it would be embarrassing, or they edit the text 10 times and then they still don't send it to me. Which, of course, if you remember from the last video, is the opposite of an attractor writer. Attractors are all about being read. Attractors just don't automatically view their story as a performance, unless they believe that this mindset will lead to more people reading their story. Of course, the prose in most books that get published is at least sufficient, so it's not always easy to tell which famous writers naturally focus on performance, and which ones simply became good at it from decades of experience. At some point, everyone has some experience in prose and presentation, so if you want to figure out what side you are on, you have to focus on your initial impulse. Now let's bring in some Jungian psychology, shall we? This is after all Jungian psychology for fiction writing. But before we do that, I wanted to ask you to like the video, subscribe to my channel, and maybe give me a comment. Anything to help with the algorithm. Alright, before we talk psychology, I want to warn you guys. There is some stuff for you to learn if you really want to benefit from this channel. But it's not very complicated, and I promise that it's all going to be relevant for fiction writing. So first of all, we need to talk about Jungian cognitive functions. What are Jungian cognitive functions? Everybody's brain is able to perform 8 specific functions. In each of the 16 personality types, the pattern of how these functions are expressed is different. But there are only 16 different ways that your brain can be wired at birth. And then, of course, life circumstances cause you to grow into the unique human being that you are today. Now, it is important for me that you understand that your personality type is not your identity. It is nothing but a neurobiological feature. You might relate to a type description, but that does not make you that type. I wanted to add that here because I see a lot of people treat type as a way of finding their identity. It's not. Type is very much like eye color or whether your hair is curly or straight. It's a feature of your biological organism. No type is better or worse than any other, and every type can do everything and be everything, and yes, every single type can be an amazing writer. Some of them just don't appear very often as writers, I find. In this first season, we will look at each of these functions and what roles they play in your fiction writing process. The first two functions we'll talk about are the functions that are responsible for the processing of internal experiences and for physically enjoying a performance, which is called introverted sensing, or SI, and the function that interacts with the environment and is responsible for crafting a performance so somebody else can physically enjoy it. And that one's called extroverted sensing, or SE. Logically, SI users are attractors, SE users are impactors. Introverted sensing, or SI, is the function that pays attention to internal physical experience, physical enjoyment. SI is also associated with other concepts such as the long-term memory and endurance, which is why I picked a tree symbol to represent it, the long roots of memory, basically, and the endurance of a tree. It is also associated with discipline and loyalty, but let's just focus on the first two for now, paying attention to the internal physical experience and physical enjoyment. SI is all about whether you are delighted, disgusted, afraid, angry, ecstatic, whether you feel pain or sick. It's about you being aware of the physical reactions and experiences that you have. SE, or extroverted sensing, crafts a performance, and SI, introverted sensing, is aware of its own reaction to a performance. It's like what Zac Efron says in this movie, We Are Your Friends. It's the DJ's job to get the people out of their heads and into their bodies. In other words, to make them pay attention to their internal physical experience. SI, because it is the long-term memory, remembers all those amazing experiences that it has received, all the times that it enjoyed a performance. So now let's look at the other side of this, extroverted sensing. If you are an SE user, then you have a very good sense of other people's internal experience. In fact, you are able to mirror other people's physical experience. This is important because you don't have such a good sense of your own internal experience. Extroverted sensing and introverted sensing are in a cognitive orbit with each other, which means that if your expression of SE is strong, then your expression of SI is weak. In other words, SE users don't pay that much attention to their own physical experience. So this is where these two types of people are compatible. The SE users want to give a good performance to SI users. They want to make them feel safe and comfortable, because if the SI user is comfortable, then the SE user that's in a room with them also feels comfortable, because they mirror the physical experience of the SI user, or basically of everybody else around them. This is why SE users are usually concerned with creating a safe environment. They partake in someone's anger, sadness, nervousness, pain, pleasure. If someone gets nervous around an SE user, that SE user also becomes nervous. And if a nervous SE user meets a calm SI user, then the SE user also becomes calm. Now let's talk about performance again for all the extroverted sensing users in the audience. Because you are so aware of the experience of your environment, you become really good at manipulating and improving that experience. That can be a woman dressing beautifully, where her fashion sense is her performance, or it can be folding little paper flowers as a gift, or cooking meals, or singing, smelling good, looking good, etc. Things you want to be good at, because it gives you the ability to impact other people's physical experience. And so writing to an extroverted sensing user is also a performance, like playing the violin or painting a picture. You enjoy watching the reactions of other people to your performance, because you partake in other people's physical enjoyment. Let's have a brief look back at introverted sensing. SI users can also be very good at performance. However, if you are an SI user, you'll approach performance from a different angle. SI is all about effort and endurance. If you're an SI user, you can suffer through things. You can endure a long, ongoing process because you have faith that if you just keep going and if you just keep repeating what you do, you will be rewarded in the end. We talked about how SI wants to receive a good experience. Well, SI users have the mindset that if they just work hard enough, they will be rewarded with a good experience, like for instance, becoming a famous author. I'm sure that'll give you a good internal physical reaction. This means that SI users don't practice performance as much as they improve it naturally through repetition. At some point, your long-term memory just becomes wise and you figure out how to write and how to have a good performance and how to do a lot of other things. Your long-term memory gives you the ability to develop systems for everything, including performance. Because everything you learn and try out is remembered for a long time and guides your attempts at finding the best approach for everything. Examples for such writers would be Brandon Sanderson or Quentin Tarantino or Alfred Hitchcock, all of them explorer writers. To conclude the point, impactors, or SE users as we can call them now, are natural performers, and they are always in some way concerned with the physical experience they give to their audience. This could be purple prose, but also suspenseful writing, or even offensive or shocking material. Attractors, however, or SI users, are more about enjoying a performance, but their desire to be chosen by audiences also gives them an incentive to craft a good performance and write in an attention-grabbing way. That's it for today. I hope this video was helpful or interesting or impactful for you, and I hope I'll see you next time.